Well, with that ridiculously loud clock ticking in the background and my squeaky chair, it can mean only one thing, that it is time for the Comedy Slab podcast with Shane O'Connor and Adrian Lacey and the loud clock and the squeaky chair and a cast of thousands. Well, two. Anyway. Welcome along. If you've never joined us before, then, boy, you've missed ever such a lot. There's been hilarity, hasn't there? Do you remember the hilarity we had in episode 47?
It's a long time ago now, but it is seared into my memory. It would be quite nice if there was another peak fairly soon.
We both love comedy, I think it's fair to say. We both have a shared passion for comedic enterprise.
I thought you were going to say a shared passion for each other, but I got steady on, boy.
That's after the podcast. We alternately choose a comedy program to listen to or to watch. So we it's a bit like Challenge Annika, but without the Annika. We challenge each other to watch a comedy program or listen to it. And then we get back together and do this bit, which is the chatting about it, if you like. We'll play a couple of clips between now and the end of the podcast of the program in question, which this week was my choice. It's called It Ain't Half Hot Mum, which you might think, if you've never heard that before, that's a strange title, and it is, isn't it? In a way, I guess it's. It
is. I think it must be aired in Series 1, Episode 1, when one of the cast is writing home to his mum, isn't he?
Oh, did they actually say the line?
I'm quite sure. I even remember it, viewing it for the first time. Yeah.
But we'll talk some more about this in a second anyway. Before we do that, comedy news. And I saw something this week, and I thought, is this the worst of all worlds? Was this idea that Jim Davidson is going to he's not going to present it, is he? Is he going to present it, or is he just going to, I thought somebody else was presenting it, isn't it?
He's making a panel show, so it's slightly vague, isn't it?
He's launching a panel show. I think he's our British Comedy Guide described it, but it's described as anti-woke panel show. Your thoughts, Adrian?
Well, he is a bit of a goader, not a pagoda, which you'll find in Battersea Park.
Isn't it? Is that a cheese?
Gouda.
What's that smell? It's my Gouda, I'm afraid.
So part of my job, I feel, is not to react the way he wants me to, as to use his term and many other people's, a snowflake.
Right.
Yeah, we're expected to know what is meant by woke and hence anti-woke, but I don't know that it's quite that clear, cut and dried, really.
And if it is, it's a bit sad, isn't it, really? I mean, I was looking at arguments on Twitter this evening about left and right wing politics, and somebody made the point, and I thought, you have to kiss a lot of frogs on Twitter, don't you, for example, to kind of get to where you want to be. And somebody had put, it isn't, life and politics isn't that binary. And I thought, actually, that's probably the most sensible comment out of all of them. They were saying,
was that a non-binary person on Twitter? No and if idea. So, were they woke?
No idea. I mean, this whole. I mean, first of all, when I saw it, I thought, another panel show. God, I mean, of all
your favourite genre, I forgot.
Of all the vehicles to choose, if he was going to launch an anti-woke sitcom or something or whatever, you kind of think, well, I'd be prepared to find out what that's all about. But another panel show, no, please. That is just the last thing that we want. I mean, the thing that surprised me the most about it was kind of reading through the article and saying that he'd launched his own YouTube channel, and then that was succeeded by a Ustream channel, which I've never even heard. Have you heard of that? I've not even heard of that.
No, I assume it's sort of tongue-in-cheek YouTube, but it is actually. I do remember. I mean, I don't know if you remember the first time you heard the term YouTube, but I really clearly remember having to ask someone. Sounds really thick now, but how would I know? No one's born knowing what YouTube is.
Yeah.
I said to a friend who was recommending it, I said, "Is it the letter U?"
Yeah,
and he had to steer me right on that.
Well,
but why wouldn't you need to ask.
I think that's a fair enough. I mean, marketing as it is today, it's a fair enough question, isn't it? Really, to be honest with you.
But this Ustream, as I say, it is the letter U and the word stream, all in one word, not even hyphenated. The cheek of it.
I was only sitting in a Uber the other day and saying to the Uber driver,
was it hyphenated or just one vehicle?
Do you know we should change the name of this podcast to "Don't Mention Alan Partridge"? But
but even in the title, we would be mentioning Alan Partridge. I fear you're going to mention AP.
Well, it just puts me in mind of that. In his book, he talks about how he's trying to coach. He was talking about the Norfolk accent, and he's trying to coach Bernard Matthews to say beautiful.
I remember now. Yeah,
it was the payoff that I love because he said, "I'm saying beautiful," and he's going beautiful. He's going beautiful, 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 and he looked at me with a tear in his eye, and he said, "Alan, it's futile."
It desperately needed a good punchline, and by golly, that is one. I've completely forgotten the punchline.
Yeah,
I just enjoyed the journey. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
this. I mean, you've worked with Jim Davidson, haven't you? Was it Big Break you were on, or?
It was a small break for me. No, it was actually obviously it's airbrush from your memory.
But, I know what it was. It was Gen Game.
Generation Game. Before, as I recall, Brucey returned, and I also returned with Brucey. But here's my favourite trivia question. I'm sure I've done it before on the Slab, but by golly, I'll do it again. You can't expect me to write new material each week. Does anyone remember? I'm asking you, but everyone can pause their playing devices before you answer, so that they have to come up with the answer themselves. It helps if you're of a certain age. But who did the music, the theme tune for the Jim Davidson version of the Generation Game? I was shocked, and you maybe, if you don't know, but you might remember.
Well, it wasn't the same thing then. It wasn't the same. Life is the name of the game.
Do you think, honestly, Jim Davidson would have Brucey sing his theme tune?
No, but I didn't know whether it was just like an instrumental version of that in my memory.
No. I think I've got a strong feeling Jim Davidson, shall we say, his star was more in the ascendant in them days, and I think it. This is my hunch. I don't know for a fact, but I believe it will have been a precondition of his, or at least it demonstrates star power because he actually chose these artists. That I believe I got from the inside track when I was working on the show.
Chaz and Dave.
Are you serious? Yeah, Are you taking the ride?
I was only just thinking of they were class musicians. Them pair. I mean, they were.
Well, I'm not knocking them, but I just wanted to check that you were serious that Jim. I mean, I could see it. Are you making the East End?
Well,
London
there was
connection?
the East End, and then their musical pedigree, and I kind of thought,
I think that would have been a good fit. I mean, fantastic musical pedigree for. Was it Dave who played on Joe Sputnik song? Joe Meek played. He was a session guitarist in the age of Joe Meek. Google it. Anyway, I think that would have been a good fit, but it's not the answer. Do you want the answer?
Go on.
Not half, mate. It's Emerson, Lake and Palmer, ELP.
Wow.
Knock yourself out.
Oh, right.
Yeah. I tell no lie. And it was typically rocky, a great thick Hammond B3 organ sound, dirty guitars, walloping drums, the lot.
Wasn't it called Fanfare for the Common Conveyor Belt? Was it?
Did you say funfair? Was that actually a smashy and nicey line? Funfair for the common. Yeah, very good. Is that yours? Is that a Shane special, or shall we credit Harry Enfield and Paul Whitehouse? Not half.
All right, mate, not half.
You're not telling, are you?
And you said his star was in the ascendancy. What was he like to work with, Jim Davidson? Was he Mr. Billy Big Things or not?
Interesting thing to recall. I'm not going to recall his thing, but I'm being slightly cautious legally, but for the most part, in the studio, fine. That's what I'm going to say. A nice guy, and I didn't experience anything else, so that's all I can comment on. Professional, no strops, and actually, what I was recalling today was. And maybe I was a bit naive the way I received it at the time, but he did a little show for us, which Do you really want this level of detail? We used to have in the sound crew, of which I was a part, on the Gen game, we had a tradition. I think we were working on it 2 days a week at that stage. They'd knock out 2 shows per day, certainly whenever they're in the studio, and we would take it in turns to cook cakes. How hard we on the sound crew.
Right.
So afternoon tea was always accompanied by a cake made by one of the sound engineers.
Oh, nice.
And I, since you're asking and very interested, cooked American cheesecake, which was the only time I've done it, but I was very proud of that. But just quickly, he did a show for us, a mini show, and I remember the routine, and it tells you we're sort of late 90s here, I think. He was talking about that newfangled invention, which was the credit card type key for your hotel room.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, he spent most of his life in hotel rooms, not necessarily his own, perhaps, but... so he did a routine about, you keep swiping it, you swipe it once, swipe it again, it goes red, go back to reception, all of that. I'm not doing a very good impersonation.
Oh, it was a very good impersonation, but go on.
But not of him. But what I thought afterwards was actually, okay, he did a free show for us, hats off to him for that, and that was nice. You felt you were seeing behind the curtain. Same time, I thought today, actually, that was a very naive view of a younger version of me. He was using us as a free audience for trying out his material, which again is fine.
Yeah.
Both groups, both parties go away happy, but we're each working for each other. So that it wasn't really a freebie on either side.
He always comes across to me as quite a decent sort of fella, sort of well grounded. He's obviously, very well off. But he obviously likes to put a bit back, and he's very keen on doing stuff for the armed force and that. But it don't never ceases to amaze me how he whines. He's very divisive and whines, as you say. You called him a goader, but he really does live rent free in the heads of left thinking people, doesn't he? It's fascinating.
You always talk about left thinking people as if you aren't addressing one. I'm not particularly lefty, by the way, because when you do refer to my politics, you make it sound like I'm an out and out Stalinist.
Well, I mean, equally, you make me sound like I was thrown out the SS for brutality. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, you were just a bit too rough for them.
So it's horses for
they
courses.
weren't ready for it.
Yeah, but no, I don't know. I just find he doesn't bother me one way or the other. I don't. His stand up, take a leave. I don't find it particularly, hugely. He's okay. He's all right. He's got an audience, hasn't he? And he knows where he's pitching it at, kind of thing. But yeah, I was just looking at some of the replies on the British Comedy Guide Twitter feed when they put this story on, and there's like people queuing up to just to really kind of put the needle in, and it's fascinating. But I don't know. I mean, I think it's anything that is produced by a non-mainstream broadcast production house, I think I always find a little bit interesting and a little bit, I kind of, like it's go underdog kind of. Do you think? Is that fair?
Well, the reason I laughed there was I suddenly had a recollection of Keith Chegwin, and as soon as I think of him, I think of nudity, and then we're back to sausages and things not or otherwise standing to attention.
Yeah.
But rest his soul, he's no longer with us. But he did have his own sort of home studio, and his I guess he was one of the first to do it. Go domestic, as it were, with a TV channel. So hats off to him for that. And maybe Jim was inspired by that.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, you're talking to a guy here who increasingly I find myself when I get into bed after a long day and I kind of think, I want to watch something for 15, 20 minutes on the iPad. I'm increasingly turning to YouTube to watch amateur produced programs, true crime programs and stuff like that, which you kind of think, this is blooming quality. So anyway, on to the subject this week of the Comedy Slab, and as I say, it was my turn to choose last week. We both came to the revelation, didn't we, that we'd watched it when it went out live, and neither of us have really seen it since.
Yeah, I mean, there is a reason for that, in as much as it isn't going to get repeated anytime soon. Certainly not a mainstream channel.
This is considered too racist by the BBC to be rebroadcast. I
did see a quote from an Ofcom chief, not necessarily the current one, maybe the previous one.
It's 2014, that wasn't it? I know.
Right. Okay. So it's going back a few years. Yeah, it would have been under the previous administration, saying everybody agrees that
Well, I don't.
couldn't be shown. Well, exactly.
So that's a hell of a statement to make, isn't it? That everybody agrees.
It is. I mean, I don't think that people can agree why the sky is blue, so they probably can't agree on a TV show.
I mean, for the head of a broadcasting regulator to say that everybody agrees, you kind of think, are you really fit for that role? And maybe they're not in it anymore, so that's probably all come out in the wash, as it were. But yeah, I mean, possibly
not getting out that much beyond their upper middle class, ruling class circle.
Yeah.
But look, we're going to deal with the blacking up issue. We have to, even though you sort of said you didn't think it was an issue last week, and everyone's entitled to their view.
No, I asked I said, well, is it? Are we? Will we talk about it?
Well, I'm going to talk about it. I mean, you're editing this week, so if I get silence...
It'll just be music playing when you speak.
Good tune, though. I mean, Girl from Ipanema.
That's a good point, Adrian, but I'm telling you, there's no way... Hang on, don't interrupt me.
I don't, for one, agree with you. My name's Shane O'Connor. Oh, no, hang on. You're impersonating me. No. Right. Well, this is the bit. Aren't you meant to be asking me how I felt when you put It Ain't Our Fault I'm on the slab?
Well, that's what you'd like me to ask you, because that's
isn't that the convention?
Well, that's your convention. I mean, I don't ever remember.
I think it's our convention, darling.
I don't know.
Well, okay.
Go on and answer it.
It's your week. No.
No, I'm not going to ask it, but you answer it.
Okay. How did I feel? Intrigued. Yeah, to see how it had worn, or otherwise.
I mean, when I chose it, I kind of thought, wow, I don't really know what it's going to be like because of that thing, not watching it since. So anyway, come on, let's get on. Should we have a clip first of all, and then we'll give people a flavour for what this thing at least sounds like if we don't see the pictures, of course. If you can imagine a lot of men, a lot of sweaty men in khaki, it's like Tenko for fellas, isn't it? This really,
it sounded like a party around your house when you had a house.
Yes,
lots of sweaty men with car keys. Oh no, maybe I misunderstood you. And their wives. Anyway,
I love you now. That was quite a good night. I came away with the Morris Traveller estate.
The old ones are the best. Right. Are you going to get us finally onto this audio clip?
Yeah. Let me tell you that it is set in the latter stages of the Second World War. And I think it ran for about 8 series. And I think the first, was it 5 or 6 series was set in India. And I think they moved it to Burma. After that,
you said Birmingham. That would be interesting.
Yeah, there wasn't any fighting in the stores. There was in Birmingham. There was anyway. So we catch up with the action. Some of the lads are in their quarters, their sweaty quarters, and
undrawn quarters.
Exactly. Bombardier Solly Solomon. Who I'd even forgotten George Layton was in this. I love George Layton. We'll talk more about him, I'm sure, before the end of the podcast. He's having a shave, courtesy of one of the locals, and he's a kind of Mr. Fix-It for the guys in the regiment, a guy called Ranji Ram. And all of the shaving foam is all over Solly's face, and it gets Ranji in a really Christmassy mood.
Holy night, the silent night.
Randy, do me a favour, no cabaret. Just make sure you sharpen that bit of old tin you call a razor.
Don't you worry, Sam. I will make it sharp as bloody hell.
Somebody at Solomon's, would you please ask Randy to put a sock in it?
Randy, you're out.
This is a very delicate operation.
She loves me. She loves me not.
Will you please belt up?
Hey, you're not writing home again, are you, Parky?
Well, I swapped an aerograph for 5 fags. It seems a pity to waste it.
I only write once a month. I can't think of nothing to say.
Oh, it's easy. Dear Mum, I hope you're well. The news is quite good. I've got the deli itch. However, I've got over the runs. How's Dad? We've all been confined to barracks by old Shutter, though none of us knows why.
No, we don't. It's a damn disgrace. It's imprisonment without trial.
That's against habeas corpus, isn't it?
Yeah. They don't have habeas corpus in the army, sunshine.
Hey, what is habeas corpus?
Well, it means literally to have the body.
We have that in India, sir. We call it Kama Sutra.
I'm laughing in spite of myself. I suppose you can't see the makeup for that particular character when you're just listening to the audio. You'll be wanting a headline, so you will.
Go on then, spoil us, Ambassador.
Well, I might spoil people's perception of me. I don't know. It ain't. This is my tabloid headline. If you can fit it on the page, I suppose it has to be slightly smaller than the average Sun headline. It ain't half aged well. Well, ish. We could probably lose one of the wells there, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
Now you hear it, now you don't. Now you're wrong-footed.
Did it shock you?
It shocked me. No, I tell you, my first thing from the first frame was, oh, actually, that looks quite good quality. That was the technical quality first off. And I was just drawn into it from that point. I think you threaten to sing the theme tune for us, or at least you confess to knowing every word, which I think people like us of a certain age, it is part of your texture. Probably can't quote too much Shakespeare, but I could tell you we are the boys to entertain you.
Yeah. And I mean, it's interesting because it was done in the style of how they would introduce a concert party, wasn't it? It was like an introduction to a concert party. And so it was the introduction to the show, but it was also the introduction to the show within a show. Very clever, I thought. And of course, it was written by one of the writers, wasn't it? The theme tune was written by Jimmy Perry.
Yes, I'm sure you're right on that. And I can do a name drop on, Perry and Croft, the two writers, having worked on a show of theirs.
Which one did you work on?
I was going to throw that question to you.
Dad's Army?
I'm not that old, sod off.
It's only 1970, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, do the maths, how old I'd have to be to have worked on it.
You told me that you used to skip off school to go and work at the BBC.
That might be your fantasy. No, it was Hello, Hello, no less. And even then, I wasn't around for the beginning of that. But I was around, I do remember there was an order from America, of all places, ordered something like 26 shows, which for us was a massive number. But as we know from slabbing American shows, 26 is, they're just warming up. That's a number off the top of my head. But they specially locked out or booked out a specific studio up at L Street to churn them out, which was, an unusual experience for us lags. We normally just did the 6-parters for sitcoms.
I'm a big fan of Croft and Perry because, to me, and they got involved in the direction and production of these things as well, didn't they? Individually. But to me, the golden ticket for their work was that they managed to work to a formula but make them different. So when if you watch the end credits of Dad's Army, for example, where they're showing each individual soldier and the actor's name appears, and it's kind of you've been watching, and they do exactly the same thing in Hello, Hello at the end of Hello, Hello. But for some reason, you don't draw a line between the two. I don't, you think, they've just nicked. That's just exactly the same. They've just copied themselves. They've done their own foot. Did you get a sense? I always got that sense that there was something fundamentally different about the way that they felt.
Would you believe he set up? I can't get the right word for it, but he restaged each of those mini clips that you saw at the end. You have been watching, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if it used the same phrase. I mean, I take your point. It felt different somehow, but he restaged. So each of the actors had to go back to where they were earlier that very evening. So he didn't snip it out of the show proper, which just amazed me. I guess he didn't want to crash onto dialogue and you'd see the lips moving and you wonder what they were saying.
The goldfishing,
you get distracted.
Yeah.
The goldfishing, yeah. So I can only assume that was the reason. But the other thing is you think you might dash it off quickly at the end of that scene. But I guess they were so aware of keeping their audience. It was a genuine live studio audience, folks. that they didn't want to take time up and then ruin the pace of it.
It's amazing, isn't it, the detail that they go into with these things, and I do think of you when I'm watching these things. I think, I wonder. The one thing that occurred to me, and I think you've kind of half answered this already. I wonder when Adrian watches this, will he think? Because I always say the first time I went into a radio station and saw a radio studio, I never heard radio the same way again. And I'm sure it's the same for you. And in the same way that once you've worked on a sitcom in a television studio, you kind of never watch TV, that genre again, in the same way, because you can see behind the frame, as it were, can't you, because of the work that you did. And I was thinking, I wonder whether he'll go, actually, look really quite shoddy and studio based and very obviously, or whether, but I think you kind of alluded that you didn't feel that at all.
No, I was pleasantly surprised. I think I kind of, like when you're priming yourself for your dentist to hack into your teeth, I had that sort of, I was gripping the sides of the chair, expecting some pain. But actually I looked at it and thought, that's a really professional product and not bad for 47 years old, which is not what people say about you, funnily enough.
No, they did quite the reverse, in actual fact.
Can we please just quickly deal with, or as quickly as we need to deal with it, the blackface thing?
Yes.
I think I know your argument, but dare I voice it and then you tell me if I'm right?
Yeah. I mean, in fairness, it isn't blackface, is it? I mean, it's not full on. I mean, that makes it sound like the black and white minstrel show. It's. I mean, somebody described it, I think, and I think it might have been Sanjeev Bhaskar as brown face rather than blackface.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just that I think of blackface as a term which encompasses that, but hey, we can use the term brown face. The point is, I mean, I think your argument would be, and we've talked about this recently, the point about actors is they pretend to be other people. So from that perspective, it's uncomplicated. He's not pretending it's Michael Bates, the actor. He's not pretending to be Michael Bates. He's pretending to be someone else. You pronounce it Ranji Ram, that's right, isn't it?
Ranji Ram, yeah. Although they seem to call him Randy. I don't know whether.
Well, that's another thing. But I think it's complicated, isn't it? The thing is, there were, I don't know how many Asian actors we would have had around that time, but you didn't have Asian actors whiting up or not whiting up to play white characters. So I don't, and I'm not saying that would suddenly make it right. It's just that when you've got talented, we saw years later. I was very proud of working on The Real McCoy, whenever that was. I think that's frighteningly getting on for 30 years ago this year, something of that ilk. And I don't think call me naive, but I didn't realise what talent we had in the Black and Asian acting community, and some of them, of course, Sanjeev Bhaskar, you just mentioned.
Lovely bloke.
Have you interviewed him?
Yeah, I have, a couple of times, yeah.
You lucky Sansa.
Lovely, got a really nice guy, lovely man.
Yeah.
Lovely man.
But very talented actor. And also he's been one of those people that was given the chance to break out into the mainstream. But you rewind to 1975, and I don't think if he'd been older then, he wouldn't have got a look in on mainstream TV, as I recall it. Here
is the dichotomy with all of this, though, and you're right. I mean, this whole thing about actors, play parts, and it's. I think it is ridiculous to say that an actor shouldn't play a part because then you would say, well, certain Shakespeare plays can't be done by Black and Asian people because that's not who the part was written for, and you get into all those ridiculous arguments.
Well, you wouldn't have women if you were
exactly
quotes authentic.
Yeah. If you wanted to do it authentically, so it is a lunacy, I think, in the extreme to start going down that route. But here's the dichotomy with all of this: is that Michael Bates was actually born in India. Which kind of throws a massive spanner into the works, really, because can you imagine saying, well, we can't have this actor playing a British man because he's black. And so, well, he was born in Britain. Yeah, but that's not neither here nor there. He's not.
Well, you've pointed out before, Spike Milligan was born in India.
Yeah, yeah.
And then, he eventually found his Irish links to get an Irish passport because he was disgusted with certain, was it government policy or something? But okay, are we ready? If that's the case, if we're looking for real equality, are we at the stage now where I can imagine a disabled actor playing an able-bodied role? If really actors are as versatile as that, and we need to be as forward-thinking.
Well, does that mean then that they need to? So if they're, for example, if they're a wheelchair user and they're going to play an able-bodied role, then they have to going to not be a wheelchair user, aren't they? And I'm thinking of the reverse of that. Of course, Raymond Burr wasn't actually disabled when he played Ironside.
Right.
I don't feel strongly about it. The only thing that really annoys me is when we say we get prescriptive that people shouldn't do. You shouldn't do that because you're this. And any kind of you shouldn't do that because you're this is wrong. And not least the fact, and this is the thing that kind of occurred to me as I was watching this, and I started thinking about Michael Bates. I mean, if you put side by side Michael Bates in this role in If I Ain't Half Hot Mum, and then juxtapose that with his role in the first series, could have been the first two series, I can't remember, of Last of the Summer Wine before he had to quit through ill health. And you wouldn't recognise the man from one role to the other. And I think it's disrespectful in the extreme to his acting ability to suggest that, you know, he shouldn't or he couldn't, or there was, you know, there was no reason for him to do it because he gave a good performance.
Oh, I would agree with that. I would agree. It's just it's complicated, as I think we've demonstrated. Shall we move on to our second clip?
Yeah,
must be high time.
Absolutely. We're in the officer's mess. Colonel Charles Reynolds, who's played by Donald Hewlett, and Captain Jonathan Tippy Ashwood, that's it, played by Michael Knowles. They're preparing to say farewell to their colleague. I thought they were calling him by his first name, but his character name is actually Lieutenant Colonel Nigel. And the Sergeant Major, Geoffrey Shut Up Williams, sees an opportunity instantly to get rid of his hated concert party.
What a shame you won't be here tomorrow night to see the new show.
Yes, pity yours then.
I didn't know you had a concert party. What sort of things do they do?
But they're doing a night in Havana. Several of them dress up as girls. Then this chap comes on, selling peanuts. And he sings, "Peanuts, ta-da-da-da-da-dum-ta-tum-ta-tum."
Sounds rather good. I suppose I couldn't borrow them for a couple of weeks.
No, I don't think I could do that.
Oh, you could, sir. I mean, well, the depot's not very full, sir, and them poor boys up the jungle, they need joking and relaxation.
Yeah, they dress up as girls, you say?
Girls, sir? They're lifelike. You can't tell them apart.
Really? Yeah, well, of course, they don't rough it, you know. They spend most of their time in the back of a 3-tonner, have to sleep on the ground.
They'd revel in it, sir. As long as they can entertain, you know, sir, it's in their blood, you see.
I suppose I could spare them for a week or two. I tell you what, we'll get them to give an audition after tiffin, and then you can see if they're up to scratch.
I'll go and get them ready for them, sir. I want you to take a special chitty to the concert party basher. Hey, that Krishna God, if he was, he's pretty good, isn't he?
And that's a reference to a bit of poignancy earlier in the show where Sergeant Major Shut Up, for it was he, was praying. And it reminded me of the sort of poignancy that Carla Lane liked to get into her sitcoms around that era. Just take it right down for, I don't know, maybe longer than you'd even dare do it today. Yeah. If you dare to do it at all.
Yeah.
But it just, again, it gives that richness and the depth that I think you referred to earlier.
You know, I found myself laughing, and one of the Indian locals was saying they're pulling down the Onion Jack. You know,
yeah, a sort of callback. Yeah, I thought there's two Indian locals. I thought they had very sharp gags, and this is the thing with it not being shown for years. You forget actually who are the fools here, who are the idiots.
Yeah.
they're not mocking the natives, those quote damn natives, to quote the Michael Bates character Ranji Ram.
That's the thing, isn't it? Because he sees himself now. All of a sudden, he sees himself as British and apart from the locals. Do you know what I mean? And they're the idiots, and he calls his own people the natives, which is, you know, this desperate to assimilate. It's so clever, the way that all the dynamics that are at work. I just loved it. Do you know what I loved about the Michael Bates character the most was that he got a turban on, and it was fastened and held in place with a snake belt. Do you remember snake belts?
No, but at some sort of level, I clocked it, and yet without clocking it in detail.
They were all the rage at one in the 70s. They were absolutely all the rage, and it was like a kind of it was although it was set then, it's a kind of modern reference, as it were. But they came in red and white or blue and white, and the buckle was like a snake that kind of clipped together.
Was it for rockers, rock and roll time?
I can't rightly remember. All I know is that me and my brother had one. He had a blue one, and I had a red one. But other than that, I just thought, the snake belt. I can't believe it. Do you know, and the other thing as well, I got to say, which I think is another bit of class and a bit of inspiration, was the pop tunes at the time played on the sitar.
Oh yeah, that lovely little, just a throwaway, but
genius. Absolutely. Yeah. Is this, and I don't know whether I'm overstepping the mark here, but is this the best thing that Windsor Davies has ever done comedically? Because I think it's
certainly the most high profile and quotable.
Got to be up there, hasn't it? I mean, in terms of his performance, was.
Although, can anything match the quality of Whispering Grass, the single he did?
Well, I didn't realise they were a double act for a time, weren't they? When they actually, I think they met in. They met in theatre, and I think.
So preceding this.
Yes, I think the two of them.
I didn't know.
Yeah, they had a double act.
And he had a beautiful voice. I'd forgotten how good it was.
Yeah, well,
absolutely pure.
Famously, I mean, I don't know if you remember, but in the League of Gentlemen,
Lofty that is, not Sergeant Major. Shut up.
No,
Windsor Davies. Carry on. Sorry.
In the League of Gentlemen, Don Estelle appeared in that as Little Don, who had the zoo on the roundabout in Royston Vasey.
Like you did,
which I just love. But I don't know, and you know, some of the people that this helped on their careers. I mean, Ray Butt, of course, who went on to direct Only Fools and Horses for such a long time, directed some of these episodes, and you know, there were so many people who. I mean, I mentioned George Layton, great actor, great writer. Appeared in the first two series and then left after that. But yeah, it was just, I don't know. I found myself smiling all the way through it. I just thought it was lovely. And I'm so pleased that you managed to enjoy it as well. My only regret is that we didn't watch it together, because I think we'd have had a hilarious 27 minutes. I really do.
Yeah, but you might put your hand on my knee and then it could have got ugly.
What, your knee? Get ugly.
It is a very ugly knee.
Can't get uglier than
I've only
it
got
is.
the one between two legs, which is slightly strange.
You just swap it over. I love the fact that it was set in Doolally. Did you notice it?
Oh yeah, I got the reference. Yeah, I had to look it up to double check. That's where the word Doolally, Doolally tap. Yeah. Do you know where the tap comes from? I can't remember that. Is that's not a tap on the knee, is it, or a tap on the head?
I don't know. I just know that
maybe our distinguished listeners can help us there.
Yes. Yeah. Should we get some scores on the doors, Gloria? Oh, talking about Gloria, can I just mention as well, this follows in some fine traditions. Like Get Some In. Do you remember Get Some In with Tony Selby, which was...
I never watched him.
RAF Regiment, it's ITV or whatever.
I remember it being around and my dad referring to it.
And the other reference for this one is MASH. Do you remember MASH?
Yes, indeed.
I was thinking of what was Melvin Hayes' character called? Gloria Beaumont.
Right.
Very similar to Klinger in MASH.
Right.
You know, walking around the camp with dresses on and makeup and all that sort of stuff. I don't know. I just thought, and they ran about the same time. I think this ran 74 to 81, and MASH ran from 72 to 83. So they kind of ran about the same time, either side of the Atlantic, which is quite interesting.
Yes, and yet, or unsurprisingly, really, reflecting their respective cultures very differently.
Yes. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. Come on. Shall we have some? Shall we have some numbers?
have some marks, whether it's Carl, Groucho, or Harpo. I'm not sure. I'm almost tempted to give it a 4. I think I'm going to go 3.5 because of my continuing discomfort with the black or brown face. But even that is of its time. But certainly all the things you said, very, very crisp lines. I was just going to say in summary, the one thing that Perry and Croft do, if you had to boil it down to one particular thing I think they're strong on, is just status, because they were, having fought in the war themselves. They just totally understand those sometimes minute and sometimes absolutely vast chasms between the different, particularly British social classes.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of the humour comes from. And I wouldn't mind betting that is woven into the double helix of comedy writers even today, even if they might say, oh, we've got nothing to do with Perry and Croft or don't even know them. You don't even have to know it. You are influenced by it.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely bang on. 3.5 for you. I am going to give it a 4. For the simple fact that I just caught myself smiling like a deranged gibbon
with Doolally Tap
syndrome.
syndrome.
Yeah, honestly, I did. I thought, it was the most pleasurable 27 minutes that I think
since you did the washing.
That I think I've ever had on that. I really enjoyed it. I really, really enjoyed it. I mean, so much so that I'm going to go back and start. I mean, I'm lucky that I've got all 8 series, so I'm going to go back and start and watch them. And the really sad thing is that you, as you rightly said, you will never see them broadcast again because of this idiocy. Also, even if you buy them on DVD for your own personal pleasure, the ridiculous people in charge have deemed it fit that you're not capable of watching it as it was made and broadcast, that they've actually edited it as well. And I just think, what an absolute act of sheer criminal vandalism that is, to do something like that. You can't even watch it for your own pleasure now. It's to me, it's akin to book burning, and I think they should hang their heads in shame and be absolutely disgusted with themselves for doing that. But yeah, it's a 4 from me.
Dare I do the maths and get it right this week? 7.5 out of 10. Am I right? Can you just check my homework?
3.5 out of 10. Yes, it was 7.5 out of 10 for.
Can't really argue with that. So you'll be wanting to know your homework for next week.
Go on then. What we got?
Have you heard of a show called Defending the Guilty?
Yes, I've seen.
Have you seen it?
I've seen the whole series. Catherine Parkinson.
If you say so. As you know, I'm lousy with actors' names until I've done a little bit of homework. Let's go for episode 4, and hopefully people can catch up with the story. I mean, of course, in the internet age, it's easy enough to find. If you don't watch the others, you can at least find what's French for précis, as I think Gordon Kennedy used to say at the beginning of that. Hello. So you can find out a précis of what happens in episodes 1 to 3. So it's series 1. There is only series 1 at the moment, and episode 4 of Defending the Guilty. And what I haven't said, it's on BBC iPlayer, certainly in the UK, hopefully beyond our shores. And if there are other ways of getting it, downloading it, buying it, whatever, you can be sure that Shane will include those with the blurb in next week's show.
Okay, looking forward to that one, as I say, to revisit and to look at it with my comedy slab head on. It's quite, which is obviously you can tell it's a very different head from my normal one.
Let's hope it's better looking.
The only thing I was surprised by this, I would have thought series 2 would have popped along by now, but I mean, I know Catherine Parkinson is very much in demand as a comedy actress, because she was in the IT Crowd, of course, which is where she came to prominence, I would dare to suggest. But so it'd be interesting to see. Anyway, if you like the Comedy Slab, if you like this episode, don't forget, go back and have a shuft. Go on, have a shuft. We give you full permission to shuft away.
Are you deliberately using Hinglish as the combination of Hindi and English from the Indian subcontinent is called?
Oh, it is a shufty, isn't it? It is, yeah. Like as in mufti. And mufti was the same, isn't it?
Well, keep your mufti to yourself.
Oh, sorry.
Maybe that's why you got a warm feeling. I don't know.
Let me put the lid back on. Go and have a peruse of our back catalogue. They're all there on Spreaker, Stitcher, iHeart Radio, Spotify. YouTube, and as K-Tel used to say, many, many more.
Yeah. I'm not going to dwell on the usual. You can find it at the end of each week's show, but I'm just going to say make sure you follow us on Twitter, like our Facebook page, and recommend the heck out of this show to other people. Thank you.
Yes, and thank you for your time. It's now time for us to resume normal identities. That means that I'm going to put my frock back on and go and sing the hits of Vera Lynn from her #1 best-selling album, The Hits from the Blitz.
And look out for the name Gloria O'Connor online. And, well, I had a friend who used to say, but she was only quoting another friend of hers. I mean, how far back this goes, I don't know. But enigmatically, she'd say at the end of each of our meetings, keep it moist in the Tufty Club. And I'm going to say keep it moist in the Mufti Club.